And I see that we are now recording, which is great. So we do have a lot of material to go through. However, as we go through, please put questions into the chat or the Q&A. Brian will be monitoring those, and I will be stopping at regular intervals throughout this presentation just to make sure that understanding is being achieved, or at least as much understanding as we can have today in this session. All right, so I'm very excited to be talking with you all about this. So let's get started. As soon as I can advance the slide. There we go. So as Brian said, my name is Natalie Cummins. My pronouns are she, her. For those of you with vision impairment, I am a white woman with medium length gray hair, and I am wearing a green sweater. My background is a scene from Lexington, Kentucky, which is where I am, with a split rail fence and a lot of greenery and trees on a path. I am the Pearson VUE Client Channel Operations Manager. That is a fairly new, well, a little over a year role where I came to Pearson VUE, as Brian mentioned. I started a little over a year ago. I am the former GAD administrator for the state of Kentucky, and I have over 25 years experience in adult education, both at the state adult ed level and at the classroom level, where I taught GED math and ESL for over 15 years. So I've had a gamut of experiences with the adult education community in the field. And as Brian said, yes, I am very passionate about our learners and helping them get access to what they need to succeed and move on to bigger and better things in their lives. So our learning objectives for today, we want to understand the concept of mobile testing sites. What are they? Let's unpack that a little bit. We want to look at the reasons to do mobile testing. There are a lot of good reasons to do mobile testing. We want to examine the current testing footprint in the US. That would be mobile testing outside of corrections. We want to discuss how to make this work in your state. It is working very well in a couple of states, as you will see in a little bit, but there's a lot of room for growth. And we'd like to review some more details about mobile testing, some facts, some interesting things that you might not have known can be done with mobile testing. So let's get into the meat of it. A mobile testing center is a set of testing computers and all the other equipment that you would need to take a testing center to a remote location and do GED testing. When I started as GED administrator in Kentucky several years ago, even before that, I had heard of mobile testing centers. And I think, like a lot of people, I thought, is that like, one of those big RVs that has computers in it? Well, it does not have to be that. It can just be a set of laptops and some other peripherals that you would load up and take to a learning center or a library or a business, and you would set up a mobile testing center. Mobile testing centers are usually created as satellites of existing fixed testing centers. However, in conversations with GED Testing Service, it is clear that there could be more opportunities for so-called freestanding mobile sites to be approved. These can be approved at the discretion of GED Testing Service. And if you have a situation, let's say a highly rural situation that you are looking at to do mobile testing, then that's a conversation that we would love to have with you one-on-one. So just keep that in mind as we go through. Mobile testing is most commonly used to serve jails, at least it has been for years, but it can be very valuable for public testing needs, as I think you will see as we go through. So here is a general testing setup, and allow me to describe this graphic a little bit. There are several boxes on here. A testing center is set up generally with an admin computer, and every PVTC or Pearson VUE Testing Center needs to have an admin computer. In a mobile setup, these are laptops. And that admin computer is connected to testing computers in a local area network. I have 3 testing computers pictured here. That does not mean you are limited to 3. You are limited to 15, but you can have just 1 testing computer. So that's, keep that in mind. Also connected to the admin computer would be a printer, a camera for taking the photograph of the candidate, and then the signature pad for capturing the digital signature. That is the standard security kit for any Pearson VUE testing center that does not serve corrections. And we will be talking about those a little bit more, again, in detail later. So why mobile testing? What makes this a good idea? Well, a mobile site allows you to take testing to your students. It also offers the same test security as a fixed Pearson VUE testing center because it is a PVTC. You have that security kit. You are taking the photograph of the candidate. You are setting up the testing center in a location that is distraction-free and secure. So you control that testing environment. Also, in most cases, you are already going to have a fixed testing center. So your test proctor can be the same proctor as for your fixed site. Test proctors are not limited to one site ID or one testing center. You can have a proctor that serves multiple testing sites. So let's look at some mobile testing center statistics. So I pulled these a couple weeks ago, and currently there are 313 mobile testing centers in the US. 257 of those are correctional and 56 are non-correctional. So that's 18% are non-correctional. Like I said, traditionally mobile testing has been used to serve primarily the corrections environment, which makes sense because a lot of jails or detention centers, county detention centers, don't have the space for, a fixed testing site. But there's lots of other instances where mobile testing also works in a non-corrections environment. This is what the US looks like right now in terms of testing footprint. And this is non-correctional mobile testing centers. So Arkansas leads us with 15. And I had the pleasure of co-presenting this session with Diane Doyle, who is the GED administrator for Arkansas. We co-presented this session in New York this past summer for the GED TS conference. So many kudos to Arkansas for the great work they've done. Also, a lot of kudos to my state here in Kentucky, coming in next at 14. Kentucky has long had a strong, very strong non-correctional mobile test environment, serving a lot of counties in rural areas and rather large service areas. So they've been, at this for a long time, and they have a lot of expertise. We have some other states, several other states coming in with, 5 and 1 and 3, just a few here and there. Most of the states in the US do not have any non-corrections mobile testing. So that is something that hopefully we can work to change. All right, before I go on to the next section, let's do a little check. Brian, where are we at the chat and Q&A?
So yes, just as a clarification, I think the chat's turned off for everyone, so they have to submit questions in the Q&A, and I do have some for you.
Good to know. Okay.
Kim commented that I didn't know printers could be in the test room, and I think that's only if they're not printing, right?
Yes, that is correct. You would need a printer to print off some documentation sometimes for candidates, such as the test taker agreement, that sort of thing, but you can also have that pre-printed.
Kay asks, can computers that are currently used for jail testing be used for the purposes of other mobile testing?
No, I believe not, because if you are using computers for jail testing, then that is in a corrections channel. And corrections testing does not require the use of the security kit. So you would need to set up, I believe you'd need to set up a different site ID and have different computers that would be for a mobile academic site as opposed to a mobile corrections site.
Question, what does it take to become a proctor for GED testing?
So the only requirement that Pearson VUE puts forth is that you have to complete the PVTC test administrator certification. And there's a lot of documentation that you have to read, and you have to go through a series of steps to become certified. States, however, may enact their own requirements around who can qualify to be a test proctor. So you would want to check with your state administrator regarding any educational requirements or something like that.
Ruth asks, is if CBT is being conducted within a jail, is that considered mobile testing?
Not necessarily. If it's CBT, if the computers are going in and out of the jail, then it is mobile. If it's just if the computers are there all the time, then it's usually fixed, but I'd have to look at the site, the site ID to tell for sure.
Okay, and then Sarah asks, her school's damaged, closed due to water damage, and hopefully we'll be back open in January. And she wants to know if they can set up a mobile testing ASAP and help a student. My guess is I'll let you answer it, but I don't know if you'll be able to get that up in time.
So mobile testing, if you're creating it off of a fixed site, it can be very quick. But it's not going to be a week or even maybe 2 weeks. It probably is going to be in the neighborhood of closer to 30 days, simply because some paperwork needs to be signed and completed, which I'll go into, and you have to get a whole new site ID and you have to get that site activated. So there are several steps through the channel process in order to get a mobile site set up. But my contact information will be at the end. So if she'd like to contact me directly, I'd be happy to talk about that.
Great. Can a proctor also be a GED instructor in other settings?
No.
Yeah.
And I think, Brian, you can also answer that.
Yes, I can. I was just going through. I read it as I was looking at it. Yeah, nope. You have to be you cannot be a GED teacher if you're going to be a proctor.
There are incredibly rare exceptions where or situations where that might be an exception. But as I said, they are incredibly rare.
Is there a firewall or secured network that would need to be permitted for a mobile site?
Not necessarily, because you can actually you can use mobile testing offline. So I will talk about that a little bit more, but I would also say I don't know exactly that I understand the question. And I will be providing links to the tech requirements here in this presentation. We can also maybe put it into the Q&A at some point, but yeah, I don't want to get too far into the weeds that way.
Yeah, let's resume and then we'll take another time for questions in a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There'll be another break in a few slides. All right. So why do this? Why? Good question. Capacity issues, reach issues. There are a lot of testing deserts out there, and we know this. There can be testing deserts in rural areas, geographically rural areas. There can also be testing deserts in more populated urban areas. So it doesn't matter, one way or another. Wherever there is a lack of access to GED testing, we would consider that a desert. The number one concern, of course, that we hear is that adult learners have transportation issues. And the more distance you have to travel to get to your testing, the more this increases obstacles around the cost of getting to the test, the gas that it takes for the car, if they even have a car, if they have to borrow a car from somebody. Because in a lot of places, in your rural areas, you're not going to have public transportation. The time that it would take to travel to and from a testing center, that's also something to think about because, if you have to travel 45 minutes, an hour and a half to get to testing, that's a barrier that a lot of people just don't want to cross. And then there's the courage issue. Having worked with adult ed learners for a long time, and I know there are many, many people out there in this same boat, you understand that the typical adult ed learner really wants to have a sense of familiarity, and they want to know where they're going and what kind of environment they're stepping into. And they want to know that where they're going is going to be someplace that is, safe for them to be in. So if they don't feel that, if they don't have that courage to go into test, then one, they might put off testing. But two, they also might go to testing, but they might be so anxious about it that they don't succeed, that they fail the test. And the longer a student waits from the time that they are ready to take the test, either they've passed, they've gotten green on the GED ready, or they've somehow otherwise demonstrated that they're ready to take the GED test, the longer that span of time is between knowing that they're ready and actually taking the test, we know that it's more likely that that candidate will fail their exam, or they won't score as highly as they would like to. And for some of our learners, they could also score high enough to get in, to college ready or college ready plus credit scores. So the sooner somebody can get tested, the better. Not to beat this, but yes, I do want to emphasize that there are lots of benefits, right, to mobile testing or to having increased testing access, for our learners. Reduced travel costs for students. I am aware that there are some adult ed programs that provide, transportation vouchers, maybe bus vouchers. Some states that are incredibly rural, looking at you, Alaska, will have to transport students in incredibly complex ways to get them to a test center. And that costs money, and our students are worth it, of course, but I do understand adult ed programs have a limited pool of dollars. We also want to reduce that wait time for testing. The sooner somebody can test, the more likely you are to increase their pass rate and the pass percentage. One of the other major benefits of mobile testing is a flexibility of a testing schedule, because you, as the owner of that mobile site, set your schedule. Nobody else sets that for you. You can set it and you can deliver as often as you are able to. Tests can be delivered offline, and I think that this is a really, really great feature of mobile testing. I'm going to talk about that in a more detailed slide later, but essentially it means that you can download the test in one location where you have internet and then take it to a place where maybe internet is not available, and you can deliver the test, and then you can run the scores when you get back to a place with internet. Also, this testing method is more reliable than online proctored testing. And that's not to put down online proctored testing at all. It has been, valuable in certain situations. But as a GED administrator, former GED administrator, I do remember fielding my share of questions and issues with technical concerns around OP testing, because not everybody has the technical requirements, the technology, the computer, the internet connection, or the space, the distraction-free space, in order to really succeed via online proctor testing. But you can create a mobile site and deliver that to a location where you can provide all of that. Bottom line is, you can take testing to where your students are. Okay, before I get into the how to make this work in your state, let's take some questions, Brian.
Yeah, we've sure got some.
I see the number there, yeah.
Yeah, if I have already been approved for a site and would like to start a mobile site, do I have to start the process over?
No, you do not. So you can, it's very simple to add a mobile site onto an existing fixed site, even if you have not been fully activated on that fixed site. Please get in touch with your state relationship manager or your sales manager, if you know who your Pearson VUE sales manager is, and say, I would like to add a mobile site, and they will get the paperwork started for you.
I have had a mobile test site for a while, but have not yet figured out how to market it effectively. Do you have any suggestions?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a really good question, and I don't address that in here. But I know that in Kentucky, at least, there are a couple of mobile sites that are willing to go to other adult ed locations and to, provide testing for a fee, essentially, to cover the costs of operating that site. So they network through their adult education director network, as well as at adult education meetings and things like that. So that's one. I don't have a whole lot of suggestions around how to market it, but that's a really good question, and you can feel free to email me about that later when my email comes up at the end.
Is the mobile testing specific to GED testing, or are other tests allowed to be conducted at the same mobile site?
So it is mostly intended for GED testing. I have been told that many of the IT exams that Pearson offers can also be delivered via a mobile site.
Great. If I have a small mobile testing site, say one computer, am I able to test multiple people on that computer, one after another, before
Yeah.
reconnecting to the internet?
Yes, you should be able to do that. You should be able to download everything to the admin computer and then go through one by one as you deliver the exam in your location.
Great. Just to clarify, if a site is already a remote test site for corrections, it can't double as a remote test site for regular GED students?
Correct. Yes. Mobile corrections cannot be used to serve those who are not in the corrections, are not justice involved or incarcerated.
So they could, but they could, because there's a bunch of questions about this, but they could apply and become a mobile site outside of corrections, right?
Yes, that is correct. So there are, I can think of at least again, pulling on my experience with Kentucky, because that is the most familiar to me, of programs with a fixed site, a mobile corrections site, and another mobile site that just serves the non-incarcerated population. So that does get to be a fair number of computers and peripherals, but that can be done, and that is how it has to be done. Yeah.
Okay. Back to Kay Pagan's question, can you not use the same laptops in correctional and public settings? So again, that comes up, if they were to download the additional software, could they still use the same?
No, you
No.
cannot, because the way the software is configured with Pearson VUE testing is that testing software will only work with one site ID. So every testing site has a separate site ID. So your fixed site has a site ID and has computers. Your mobile site for the public has a site ID and you'd have to have separate computers. And then if you did corrections, you would have another site ID and you'd have to have separate computers for that.
Gotcha. Great. So it says, seems like there are a lot of corrections people here. I think we are wondering if mobile testing would be easier than the current way that we have to test, plugging in and out of the wall, internet, changing code number, etc. Any thoughts there?
I don't know if I quite understand the barriers that are being listed there. So perhaps that person can write a little bit of a clarification and we can get back to it.
Okay. A scenario, location has designated space for GED testing, but they are finding it may not meet their needs. Could they change this process to be a mobile testing site using laptops and offering the GED test at their offsite locations? Basically, they would no longer have a designated space, but move a more portable lab to various locations. Is that possible?
Oh, I believe they're asking if an existing fixed site can be transitioned into a mobile site.
Yep.
I got that question actually before, and no, it is not something that's feasible, mostly for channel systems reasons. It does not go well. It would be easier for them to apply for a mobile site,
Gotcha.
and go from there.
But they could apply for a mobile site and then decide to go that route. Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Is it possible to run test administrations, admissions, delivery, registration manager over Wi-Fi?
And no, you need to, for mobile testing, it has to be, I believe it has to be connected physically to the internet. Wi-Fi testing is typically reserved for fixed sites that are using the cloud control technology or CCT software, and CCT is not available on mobile, to the best of my knowledge.
Can the schedule be set up so only GED testers can register for the mobile site testing? I think you're going to get to some of that before.
Yeah,
right?
I will be getting a little bit more into that, but that's a great question. That mobile testing sites are not visible in GED accounts. They are private by default. So that means no student is going to self-register for your mobile site. You are in direct control of all the test registrations. So absolutely, you can choose only to, register GED candidates.
Why don't you continue and we'll get to some of these, because I have a bunch more and I'll try to answer some of these via chat while you go to the next stage.
Sounds great. All right. Now let's talk about some more nitty gritty. We're kind of moving top down here. So we're going to talk about how to make this work in your state. And I'm starting with the top level. Right now I'm speaking more to my fellow GED administrators who might be out there, former, as well as state adult ed staff. This is mostly speaking with you. So the first step when you are thinking about how to make this work in your state is you want to analyze your current test center footprint. How do you do that? Well, first you have to have a list of your current test centers. You can get that from your state relationship manager. Some of you might already get that regularly from your SRM, or you can get that from me, the Pearson VUE CCOM, as I'm called, your client channel operations manager. Another method for getting and analyzing your footprint is you want to survey the field for suggestions. I have no doubt that your adult ed field has ideas and they have thoughts about where testing is needed. And so you want to tap into that resource. You want to think about, okay, are there areas that we need to directly target? You can use zip codes from the test centers that you already have to generate a map a coverage map, really, you can use special software for this, or honestly, go old school and you can plot them by hand on a paper map. Either way works. When I was the GED administrator in Kentucky, I had the good fortune that our agency was located next door to Kentucky Stats, which is a longitudinal data organization serving the state. And if you happen to have one of those or some other statistics people in your state government, then you can ask them to easily generate a map for you. I had a guy that I went to every month, and he gave me a wonderful PDF map in about 5 minutes just by me giving him zip codes. So those are just some things to think about. After you plot this, you look for the gaps and you think about where you can get the best return on implementing mobile testing. The next step after you've analyzed what your footprint already is to customize it for your state. Every state has a different adult ed situation, be it funding or how your adult education network is set up, or who typically delivers the GED exam in your state, all kinds of things. So at the state level, you want to think, are there goals for adoption? Do you have a set number of mobile sites that you want to establish? Do you want to cover all the counties in your state? When Arkansas set out to really address their test coverage issues starting in 2020, they had goals. They shared those goals out to the state, and their goal was to have every county in their state covered. Another question you want to ask is there a timeline for this? Do you want to have your mobile sites established within 6 months, 9 months, a year? What's the timeline that you're looking at? Do you happen to have any incentives or performance funds that could be tied to successful implementation? Some states do, not every state does. I do recognize that. But for example, Arkansas was a state where they did have money available to assist with the creation and implementation of mobile testing. And it certainly helped in their situation. It's not necessary, it's not required. There are ways to do this without, but you can, if you have that money at the state level that can be allocated, maybe think about that. And then you also want to examine what other supports might be available from the state office for those test centers seeking to implement mobile testing. Do you want to put information on your website? Do you want to share best practices from other mobile testers that might already be active in your state? Do you want to set up a special webinar just for your state with me and your state relationship manager? So those are things that you can be thinking about at the top level. And then finally, after you've got all that information out there, you've got your goals, you've got your timeline, and you have some momentum building and some sites are being established, you want to follow up. You want to check the progress against those goals that you set and toward application and adoption. You also can examine your testing volume in GED Analytics, and this is typically something that is reserved for those GED administrators, where you can get down into the data and you can look at your testing volume before implementing mobile testing and after, maybe get specific with zip codes and different testing centers. These are just ways that you can prove a return on investment. And a lot, especially if you are making a financial investment in these programs, then that is something that I know speaks well to legislators and other people in state government to show, hey, this is something that is actually making a difference, and maybe we should try to, promote more of this. Okay, before I get into the local level, Brian, shall I answer some more questions?
Sure, let's do it.
Sure.
We are a consortium of three school districts. One district is designated testing center. Our district operates the educational program in the county jail. Can we still become a mobile testing site?
Yeah, you should be able to. I don't see a problem with that. We have a
Great.
lot of consortium adult ed situations out there.
I'll just point out that Diane Doyle gave some recommendations for why they're doing it in Arkansas. So I recommend everyone
great.
read that comment. Yep.
Please, yes. Diane's
Um,
amazing.
Can an adult ed
this is-
program? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just
CT.
quickly on the last one with the consortia. One, even though it's a consortia, one entity will need to be responsible on the contract. It can't be multiple entities.
Oh, that's a good point, CT. Thank you for that. Yes.
Yep. Next question. Can an adult ed program already having two physical test centers in the metro area be eligible to have a mobile unit to serve students with transportation issues in our outlying school districts served that are in a rural part of our agency?
So from a Pearson standpoint, that's not a problem. Just as a general reminder, every application for a GED testing center goes through an approval process through GED Testing Service and your state administrator, your state GED or HSE administrator. So that initial gate is there to make sure that states have a say in what the capacity and the test footprint is in their state. So from my side of things, I don't see that as a problem. You'd have to make sure that that's okay with your state admin.
We are a fixed site. Are we allowed to test other students in the secure test room? For example, CASAS testing.
Yes, there are no restrictions around what other exams can be delivered in that secure environment. I think we prefer that if you're going to deliver the GED, you only deliver the GED at that time and not CASAS as well. But I mean, if you're looking at high stakes exams, then typically high stakes exams have the same kind of security requirements. So those rooms can be used for the same things.
So this was asked, do you have to be an established GED test center to set up a mobile site?
So the typical guidance is you have to be in operation for 3 months. However, we can grant an exception, or GED can grant an exception to that.
Instructors cannot proctor the GED, correct? That's correct.
Right.
Remote GED classes then need a separate proctor at each location. I'm not sure.
No.
Okay. No.
If I understand that correctly, the way I understand that question, and the questioner can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're taking that mobile site to, let's say, 4 different locations regularly, you can have the same proctor at each location, because you don't have to have a different proctor at each testing location.
And then this is a good question. Can a non-correctional mobile testing site only be used for students at our school, or does it have to serve the public too?
No, it does not have to serve the public. You decide who can test at your non-correctional mobile site. You can serve just your students, and that happens a lot.
Question is it necessary to have separate delivery computers or just separate admin computer?
Both. You have to have separate admin computers and separate delivery computers.
All right, why don't you go back and we'll try to answer some of these in the meantime.
All right.
That's more, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, this is great. Thank you all for those good questions, and keep them coming. So let's talk now, moving on to the more local level, about how to set up mobile testing. So before you apply, think about where those testing locations are needed. Think about where you could deliver a high stakes GED exam in a secure environment that's distraction free, that will meet the security requirements set forth by Pearson VUE and GED testing. Think about other adult education programs. Think about libraries, schools, churches, businesses, basically any of those kinds of entities. You might already have partnerships with some of these locations to deliver classes. So you might want to think about expanding that relationship so that you can deliver tests as well. You will also need to determine how the operating costs will be covered. And we're going to be breaking down some of those kinds of costs here in the next couple slides. So your one-time costs that you're looking at are the ESP kit, which is, I think it's Enhanced Security Protocol is what that stands for. In essence, digital cameras and a digital signature pad. You have to have these items to provide testing in non-corrections mobile testing, same as with a fixed testing site. You also need to have portable storage if there's no storage available on site. And by storage, I mean lockers or drawers or someplace where students' personal belongings can be stored while they are testing. And this storage has to be outside of the testing room. You need to have those laptops. And again, this does not have to be a whole fleet of laptops. You can have as few as 2 laptops, 1 admin computer and 1 test computer to set up a testing center. That goes for a fixed testing center as well. But you do need to think about that cost. I'd say the average, it seems like the sweet spot for mobile testing is somewhere around 5 laptops, 5 testing laptops. You will also need to think about extra monitors, keyboards, and mice. You do have to provide an external mouse for your test takers. That's just a baseline. And then you are supposed to be able to provide an external keyboard to those who request it, as well as a larger monitor for those who might need, who might have a font accommodation so that they need to enlarge the font. And that's not possible on a 15-inch diagonal screen, which 15-inch diagonal is I think it's 15.1 inches is like the minimum for a laptop screen. So think about that. And you might want to, if you're going to be going to places regularly, you might be able to store those extra items there at your regular testing locations. If not, you'll have to figure out a way to transport that with you. Recurring costs would be your test administrator salary. So you might already have a test administrator or proctor who serves your fixed site, and you might be able to use that same person to do mobile testing. However, sometimes you might have to hire somebody else, somebody part-time, so be thinking about that. Also determine how you're going to reimburse that person for travel. If they're going to be using a personal vehicle, think about mileage rates, etc. When I spoke last week with some folks from Kentucky to get some more feedback about how they implement their mobile testing, they do use private funding sources because they're not allowed to use AFLA funds for their test administrators. So they recommended places like, Dollar General, United Way. Not that I'm personally endorsing those, but there are numerous private funding sources, private donations, some other grant opportunities that you can think about to cover those kinds of costs. Now we get into some of the nuts and bolts, the nitty-gritty. All right, so I'm going to take my time through this. There's a lot of text here. So the actual application, the first thing you would do is to contact Pearson VUE Channel Sales. And ideally, you would do this through your state relationship manager because they like to be informed. And then also they can make sure that this is approved through your state administrator. If you have a current fixed site, so if you have a fixed testing center presently, then you will need to sign an Exhibit B, which is a one-page document that is an addendum to your current site agreement. And you're going to have to complete a questionnaire. If you are going to try to be a freestanding mobile site, first off, you will need an exception granted from GED testing service, but again, talk with your SRM and talk with me. But you will also need to go through a more comprehensive application process, because you will need to have the full site agreement in this situation, as well as the Exhibit B. So there's a lot of details going on there, but those are the broad outline, the broad contours of what's going on. You still also have to complete the questionnaire, even if you're setting up as freestanding mobile, and I'm going to be talking about the questionnaire in the next slide. Your fixed site typically needs to be in operation for 3 months before you add mobile testing. However, exceptions are made very often for this. And in fact, I have regularly seen sites that are in the application process for their fixed site. They haven't even been fully activated, and then they begin the application process for a mobile site. And so those are concurrent. So it is definitely possible to get all of that rolling at the same time. So let's talk about that questionnaire. It is about a page. It's not that in-depth. It's like 5 or 6 questions. But you do have to describe what your remote testing, what your mobile testing situation is going to look like. You need to describe in words what your reception and check-in area are going to look like. The check-in does need to be outside the testing space. You need to describe where students' personal items are going to be stored. And you need to attest that it'll be locked and outside the test room. You need to describe your test delivery area. In other words, it needs to be distraction-free, and your laptops have to be set about 4 feet apart, or if they have to be closer together, then you need to have your test takers separated by dividers, and those dividers typically have to come up about 5 feet off the floor and about 4 feet deep. That's to ensure security so that test takers are not looking at each other's, screens or hands. And then you also need to describe how the test is going to be monitored, ensuring that the proctor has a clear view of all the test takers at all times. The equipment. So we've talked a lot about the laptops. You do need testing laptops and one administrator laptop. This is separate from what is used in the fixed center or in another mobile center. You can have multiple mobile sites, but they do have to have different equipment. The security kit, that digital camera and signature pad, we do recommend 2 cameras, because if one goes down, then you are not able to continue testing, unfortunately, until that gets fixed or replaced. The peripherals I mentioned, those external keyboards, mice, monitors. You might need to purchase storage for your test takers' personal items if you are going to a location that does not have lockers, for example. You can get through office supply stores, you can get like little filing cabinet things on wheels that can be locked, so you can take that in and set that up. And then you also need to think about how to store and transport the laptops and the peripherals. There are a number of neat things on wheels that you can get. I've heard of something called a cow, computers on wheels. I learned that from the people in Michigan. So there's all kinds of solutions for that. And some people just stack them neatly in boxes. So, there's all kinds of solutions. I have put a link here, and this link is elsewhere in the presentation to the technical requirements for laptops in mobile test centers. And that is a document that I would encourage you to read thoroughly a couple of times before you apply, just so you make sure that you understand everything that's required. After you've gone through the application process and you've acquired your equipment, then you will get your site ID assigned, and you'll get a link to download and install the software. As with any Pearson VUE testing center situation, be sure that you have somebody available who has those local admin rights to your computers, because you are going to be installing software on all these computers, and you don't want to run into a situation where you're lacking a password to do that, right? This is just for those who like to be visual about it. It's an implementation flow, and this just repeats all those steps that I have mentioned in the previous slides. It's a nice stopping point. Brian.
Sure
hit me.
is. So there's a question, does that mean we'll collect payments and vouchers?
So yeah, you do have to, since it is a private testing center, you do have to handle payment as you would for any private testing center. And some states have free testing codes. Some states provide vouchers. Some adult ed programs provide vouchers. At present, GED Direct is not usable, but I'm hopeful that it will be usable soon.
So for example, if a student, this is just me commenting. So if in that situation, if you weren't paying, if the testing center wasn't paying for the student, the student could purchase a voucher themselves through GED, and you could just use that voucher at the time of payment.
Yes, you could do that.
The next one, we have a brick and mortar testing center. We have remote GED classes. Will ROE 45 need separate remote location proctors? That sounds specific to
Very
adult ed.
specific.
Rebecca, I'm going to send you my email, Rebecca, so you can follow up with me, because I work with, I think
Okay.
you're in Illinois. So I'll follow up with you. I currently have a mobile correction site. Is it necessary to have separate delivery computers or just a separate admin computer?
Separate delivery computers, because you are installing the client, the testing client, and again, to the absolute best of my knowledge, it's a separate set of testing computers, because you are you're linking the two. But I can follow up on that.
So when students who are rural look for a testing center, will they be able to find a mobile testing site on the website?
No, mobile testing sites, and why did I accidentally hit? Oh, I need to go back. Mobile testing sites are not visible in a student's GED account because they are private by default. So I think that comes back around to somebody's question earlier about marketing. You'd have to think about how you would want to let folks know that you have testing available. I will say that some programs are using mobile testing immediately after so-called boot camps or subject intensive weekends, where they have a couple of days of intense instruction, usually around math, and then use a mobile site to deliver the test immediately thereafter. So that could be one way that you could advertise your services.
Okay. This question, we have 2 computers per desk for a total of 10 computers, 5 tables, 2 computers each. Should we only have a total of 5 students taking a test at a time, or can we place temporary partitions, sorry, for them to not have access to each other's monitors?
So yes, temporary partitions are allowed in a GED only testing environment, but those temporary partitions still must come up at least 5 feet off the floor. So the top of the partition needs to come up 5 feet above the floor, not above the table, but from floor to top of partition needs to be at least 5 feet. And then from the back of the table, like forward, it needs to be at least 4 feet deep. Yeah. If you don't, so if you don't have access to partitions that meet those requirements, then yes, you would have to use just one test taker per table.
A question is, our Department of Corrections has 12 sites. If we set up one mobile site, can that mobile site be utilized in any of the established 12 sites? Some of our high security inmates are not allowed in the areas that our testing centers are located.
I'd say theoretically, yes, that is possible. But I'd like to hear more details about that particular situation,
Sure.
perhaps
So-
offline.
Yep. Nancy asks, you mean you cannot have a couple of laptops that you take to more than one site? Why not?
No, you can. Perhaps I'm not making that clear. Yes, if you have a mobile testing site set up, and let's say you have 2 testing computers, and you have your admin computer and you have your 2 testing computers. You can take that package of testing computers to basically any place within your state. Most people are going to take it only to 1 or 2 or 3 regular locations, but that mobile site can go to, this school on Wednesday, and then it can go to this library on Friday, and then it can go to the one stop on Monday, So yes, it can travel around to different sites. It's just that you cannot have those computers double as like for a different site ID. I think that's maybe where the confusion is coming in. Maybe. It is confusing.
Yep. There's a couple questions around, would test takers ever schedule their own test, a public site, or would the test center always control scheduling?
So that's a great question. And for mobile testing, the test center always controls scheduling. The test administrator controls the scheduling because it has to be done directly in Registration Manager, which is one of the Pearson testing systems. So students would never self register at a mobile site.
And there was another questions about that being that you wanting to serve people through everyone, but it's never going to be public for them to see it, right? They're going to have to get the word out through other means. Okay.
Correct.
And Wendy had a question about exceptions for some of these to transport all the items. Wendy, I think we'll follow up with you individually because you're in a unique situation.
Yes.
And then can vouchers be used for other Pearson tests besides GED?
I believe that there are ways to
Yeah.
purchase vouchers for other Pearson tests, but I only deal with the GED exam, so I'm afraid I don't know the ins and outs. I do believe that there's a voucher store though.
There is, yeah. They
for
should be
other
able to.
Pearson tests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will the proctor of a mobile site upload the test on the student computers before getting to the mobile site, then download the test to Pearson when they are completed, or are these done online?
So you can you've got a couple of options for delivering mobile testing. So if you are going to a location where you can plug into the internet, let's say a school, and you have all the permissions needed, there's no firewall issue or whatever, then you can just take your test computer package to that school. And as long as you give yourself enough time, you can download everything there at that location. You can download to the admin computer, and then you push the tests out to the test computers, and the test takers take it. It gets kind of sucked back into the admin computer, and you can run the scores right then, run the RMA, the remote maintenance agent, right then. If you are going to a location where there is not internet or it's spotty, then before you leave your place with good internet, you can download everything to the admin computer. And then when you get to your location, you're still establishing a local area network, a physical local area network with your test computers. And you can then push those out offline. Students take the exam offline, and then all that information is tucked back into the admin computer. And when you get to your location with good internet, you run the RMA, and then the tests are scored. Ideally, that needs to be all done within 24 hours. It can be done later, but you need to call the SS to get a special code.
If you register the tester, then you have the laptop they must use, so the laptop travels with the admin. Is that correct?
I would say typically, yes, the laptop, the test taker laptop will travel with the admin. However, if you know that you have secure storage available, you can leave the laptops at your, regular test location, because the test is not downloaded directly to the test taker computer. It goes through the admin computer first. So nothing is stored in terms of test information on the test taker computer.
And then what is the approval process for these sites? Is it the same as it is for a regular site? And do you know how long onboarding takes on average from site request to approval?
So if you are applying for mobile and you already have a fixed site, then the process is pretty straightforward. You sign the Exhibit B, you answer the questionnaire, and you then go through the software installation and then activation. That can be done in about a month, is, I'd say, typical, depending on how quickly you can return the documents and so forth. If you are applying as a freestanding mobile site, in other words, you don't already have a fixed site, then you're looking at more time, because that's a situation where we'll have to have a conversation with GED Testing Service to ensure that that exception is granted. And then you also have to go through the full application with the site, the master site agreement, which is a multiple page document. And so there's just some more legal stuff that goes into that. It's still, I say that a typical start to finish can be done in 3 months for the full thing, like for a full fixed site as well. If you're just adding mobile onto your fixed site, then it can be done much more quickly, and just for about 30 days. Primarily because you're not submitting pictures with a mobile site. And so you're not going through that approval process.
So the question is, how would a person find where to take a mobile test? This keeps coming up.
Yeah, so that is entirely up to the owner of that mobile test site. So I know a lot of mobile test sites are affiliated with adult education programs. And so they will likely be the ones who tell their students, we have this mobile testing and we're going to be offering testing on such and such a day. So they'll know that they are able to go take the test at their learning center or an affiliate learning center or whatever. You are not typically going to be advertising this to the general public, but it also kind of depends on if you want to pull people in for, I know some programs have pulled people in for like a GED ready event or something like that. There's lots of different ways to approach this, but the bottom line is a GED account user is not going to be able to see your mobile testing site. So the traffic to the mobile site really gets driven by the adult education provider and the desire to serve their students.
So I got a lot of questions, and I just thought I'd address this about people wanting to know who the mobile testing sites are in their states, because I think a lot of people want to reach out to them and learn from them. And it sounds like a great idea. I will say for everyone, in order to get the names of these states, reach out to, or sorry, the names of these testing centers, reach out to your state admin or your state relationship manager who can get you that information, in coordination with the state admin. And if you don't know them, then reach out to me or Natalie and we will connect you to them. So
Absolutely.
I know we got that a couple of times from people. So we're happy to connect, make connections. Just reach out through your state admins or your state relationship manager, or then me or Natalie.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Again, their question, I think, is it impossible to make it public? Yeah.
Yeah, we just, no, yeah, we just cannot make it public. It's just not a technologically speaking, it's just not possible.
And is that because the site's mobile and moves and the addresses and the dates they're offered, all of it's flexible. So I don't think the system allows for all that information to be in there, right? To be public.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And finally, so with our 3-district consortium, could we have a mobile site that serves the county jail in one district and also serves the probation center in the same county but different district?
I didn't hear, what kind of center is that?
They have a 3-district consortium. Could we have a mobile site that serves the county jail and also serves the probation center?
Oh, the probation center.
Yes, sir.
I didn't quite hear that word. As long as if you set up a corrections mobile site, it can serve multiple corrections entities. So you can take a corrections mobile site into various facilities, detention centers, facilities, so what have you. I think that a probation center is a little bit on the line in terms of those folks are no longer incarcerated, I'm gathering. So I think that's a question that I'd love to talk more about, but we need to address that offline and like get into the details of that.
Great. Why don't you resume and we'll continue to answer questions.
Sounds great. I've only got a few more slides, so but that's some really good information, I like to think. So let's talk about some more mobile testing details. So I've mentioned this before, but I think it bears repeating because, based on some of the questions that have been coming in, and it is kind of a little, something maybe that's a little hard to get the brain around. You can deliver the GED test offline using mobile testing. So in other words, you would download the test to the admin computer where that internet is available. That could be your home adult ed program or wherever you are. And then when you get to the testing site, you would connect your admin computer to the testing computers in a local area network. So you are literally hooking them up to your admin computer with Ethernet cable. Then you would push out the test content to those test taker computers. They take the test, and then all that information would be uploaded back into the admin computer. And then when you get to a place where you have internet, you would upload that, you'd run your remote maintenance agent, and that's when the scores would populate in the student's GED account. Ideally, you want this whole process start to finish to be less than 24 hours. If it's more than 24 hours, it's still possible, but you need to contact VSS, View Support Services, to get a code to allow for to allow the RMA to run. I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. You only need one testing computer, and the maximum is 15. So there is no minimum number except one testing computer plus one admin computer. So you can make this as simple or as complex as you like, as well as how it fits your budget, because every program has different budgetary situations. So you can have one testing computer and one admin computer, and that qualifies as a mobile testing site. You do set your own testing hours. So you are private by default, and private testing centers are not visible to students in their GED accounts. So those testing hours, you set them, but you can also test with extreme flexibility and responsiveness. So you can, for example, in talking with a location in Alaska, they do have to travel, so they would still have to travel significantly to deliver these tests via mobile, and they might end up in a place where somebody that they didn't realize is ready to test. Well, they don't want to turn that person away. So as long as they can get to the internet and set up, register that student for the exam, then they can deliver the test there. So you are able to make changes pretty much on the fly. You can set up extra testing hours, extra testing sessions, can register folks right before they take the test, things like that. Speaking of that, you do register the test takers directly in Registration Manager, which is one of the Pearson VUE testing systems, since students cannot register themselves through their GED accounts because they cannot see those centers. So you, as the test administrator, would be registering the students directly. And yes, it can be done immediately before testing, but just be aware of making sure that you get that person, checked in and set up, and that you're not disturbing other test takers who might be already in process. I've included this slide about other information. So there's a couple of links to general information about testing centers, as well as the technical requirements. Again, this information is available at GED.com. If you go to that site and you click in the upper right-hand corner on educators and admins, and then when the drop-down list appears on the left, you'll click on test administration, and that will take you to links where you can download these documents as well. And this is my contact information with my phone number and my email. This concludes my slide deck, Brian, and it's 4:18 Eastern time, so we have a few minutes left.
So just, I have a couple questions have come in, but I just let everyone know I will send around this recording and a copy of the slides. So you all will get a copy of these slides and the recording so you can share it with others. And it will also be posted on our website. We will also post it on our website. The question is, does the admin computer have to be dedicated to Pearson testing, or can it be a work laptop?
It can be a work laptop. I do get that question a lot. Yeah.
Great. Great. Any other questions? Somehow I feel like I've caught up, which at some point I thought we would never do.
How did that happen?
Yeah. Oh, here's another one. Can registration manager be accessed on a browser, or is it always used on the admin laptop?
It's always used on the admin laptop. Yeah, I've gotten that question before as well, and unfortunately, or fortunately actually, because it is more secure. Because registration manager, you are accessing a lot of personally identifiable information, so it is restricted to the laptop where it's installed.
I think that's it. Lots of thank yous. So
Great.
let me also say thank you again, Natalie, for doing this and for giving out your email, because there were a lot of people on this call and I'm sure they'll be reaching out. And as we said, we're here to help. So if you have questions, please let us know, or reach out to your state relationship managers or your state admins. So thank you all so much for joining the session. Take care.
Thank you all. Have a great day.